All right, guys, so this is a follow-up video from yesterday's video, which showed a way of creating reusable layouts as kind of a pseudo component by using CSS variables and a common structure, which we used a card type layout where we have a card, inner, header, body, media wrapper, and a footer, and all of our styling is done using the Bricks CSS block. I'm using advanced Seamer, so it says superpower CSS, but this is pretty much the Bricks CSS with some extra wonderful features from advanced Seamer. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is, following on from that, is some additional things that we need to look at with these cards, and there's some additional ways we can use these cards. The initial thing with cards which confuses people, you think of a card, you think of a team member, a product, a service, or something that appears as a bunch of boxes on the screen. But a card layout could also be used for a call to action or a hero, because they use exactly the same layout, where we might have an outer and inner header with some content, a body with some content, some sort of media, and a footer with some content. It doesn't matter whether it's a hero, call to action, or a card like this, the componentry to make that up is the same. So we can use exactly the same methodology and thinking for that. So what I've got on the screen at the moment, I've grabbed my card from yesterday and I'll put it into a grid on this container here. So just a 2-column grid. And what we can see is we've just got the 2 card components that we created yesterday on that grid. And we immediately see the problem that a lot of people have with laying out items or layouts into grids. And that is, this may not be a problem. You might want that lock. For example, you might make that background a darker color, and you want the outer to take up the full height of the cell of that grid, but you want the inner to just take up the height of the content. And if that's what you want, then that's perfectly okay. But what I'm going to show you here is, if we look at the card here, we've got our inner. So if you look at the card, in fact, in Bricks, it shows you, if I click on the element, you can see the blue line around the outside, and the card's taking up the full height of the cell. But if we go to the inner, we can see that the inner is only taking up the height of the content. Now, the parent, which is the card basic here, has a display of flex with a flex direction of column. Now, with flex, to take up the remaining space in a flex column or row, all we have to do is tell the elements inside it how much of that space to take up. And because we've only got the one element, which is the inner, if we set the flex grow to 1, that card inner will expand to take up all of the remaining space of that column, which is the card above it. Right now, so that's resolved the first problem. Now, the second problem is we look at it and go, okay, well, what about our footer here with our text link or button or whatever we're going to have there? We now have that sitting up under this media, but we want it aligned to the bottom. So what we do is we look at that column, which is the inner, which is also a flex column. Okay, now which one of these components here or elements do we want to expand to take up the remaining space? So I'm going to show you, actually, we look at this in the front end. It probably gives you a better view looking at this with the Chrome DevTools. So if I use my inspector and I have a look at that inner, I can see the purple bits are the space. So that's the flex space. I might just put that on the side so we can see that a little bit better. So if I look at the available space there, so I've got my gap between my elements there, I've got a gap between the media and the text link, which is the footer, and then I've got this big gap at the bottom. Right, now that's free space. That's space that is not being used by flex. So we want to tell one of these components to use up that remaining space. Best way to do that, you go to, I would say the body would be the example, and we tell it to grow the body. Okay, now if we save that and have a look at the front end, it'll push to the body, push the body to the bottom, because now if we look at our body, it's using up the remaining space available to Flex, because we've said that is the only one we've got the Flex Grow on, so it's going to apply all of the space to that one element. So that's the really simple way of aligning your content. Now, what I would say here though is that I probably, if we're going to do this as a component that we're going to reuse, I probably wouldn't do it in the UI there. I'd take that off the UI, come back to our inner here, take that off the inner. And what I would do is go back to the CSS for that card. And I have already done this. I created a variable here for my inner Flex Grow, and I created a variable for my body Flex Grow, and I've set them both to 0. And then I've applied those down here. So my Flex Grow and was my body, and my body has got my Flex Grow there as well. So what I can now do is I can leave that as a default, but I can create a modifier, which I've done here. So I've called this one -- grow, setting my Flex Grow for my inner and my body to 1. So how do I get this card to grow exactly how we just had it before? I simply add my modifier, my Flex Basic Grow modifier, and now my inner expands to the full space that's available on the card, and my body expands to the full space on the inner. So that's the alignment that you would be looking for when you did this sort of thing. So it's a really simple way of doing it. And we can still look at, which I think I probably got rid of from yesterday, because we still have on our, where's our media wrapper. So we still got this media wrapper order. So I'm going to go down to here. I'm going to create a root -- media top, paste that media order in there, and I'm going to set that to -1. Now we have another modifier. Okay, so if I go and grab my card basic name and I enter that, and I -- media top. Is that what I named it? Yes, it is. Okay, now I've put the modifier on there, which I would then lock, because we're not going to do anything with that particular class in bricks. We're going to do it all from the main element. Now I've got my media top. I've now got my inner stretching to the card. I've got my body taking up all the space, and I've got my media at the top. So really super flexible, right? Now, that is just cards, right? Just still looking at cards. Now I'm going to show you something even more powerful, where we're going to create a new section. I'm going to grab one of those cards, and I'm just going to drag that into my section up the top here. And I'm going to name that. I'm going to call that a card CTA. What I'm going to use my bricks actually has a rename, but I'm going to use my advanced symbol version, so I like it better. So my component class manager, bulk actions. We want to get the basic card basic name there, and we want to duplicate that. We only want to duplicate the classes that have card basic on it. We want to find card basic and change that to card CTA. And we want to remove the old classes from the elements, but not from the global classes, because we still have that on another component. So duplicate classes. All right, we now have a card CTA, so all of our class names have all changed from that point down. Okay, so card CTA, what do we want to do with that card CTA? Let's leave all that as it is. Maybe we're going to stick some more padding on the inside. And we could have done a modifier for this as well. So in our card padding, let's make that a XL. So we want heaps of padding on the outside there, right? We then might go to the inner padding for the inner, and we'll make that a XL as well. Okay, so we've got heaps of padding there, heaps of padding there. We're going to go to our header font size. We're going to make that a 2, so an H2. Now our icon and our heading change, because the icon and the heading are set to 1em. If we want the icon a bit bigger, where's our icon? Font size. Maybe we'll make that, say, 1.3. Okay, so now icon's going to be a bit bigger. Did we do that correctly? I think I might have messed that up. So yeah, I did. I messed up the name. I'm going to grab that name there. I messed that up on the original one, so I was a bit too quick to do this. Where's our header icon? There we go. Header icon font size. There we go. So that's bigger than the text. So we got that. Let's say we don't need the media for our call to action. So we get our media wrapper, delete that. That's gone. You could delete the CSS for that if you want to. It doesn't really matter. Okay, let's say for the gap between those, we want the gap to be a little bit bigger between these, right? So we're going to put in a inner with our inner row gap. Maybe we'll use we can use a calc here, or let's say we actually use a variable, which would be space. We'll use our space, maybe Excel there as well. Okay, so we got same spacing outside, top and bottom, and inside there. You know, maybe we don't want XL, maybe we just want that as an L. So there's some L spacing, right? Now, I could save this as a component, or I could go, look, I actually don't want the text link and icon there. Let's get rid of those out of the footer. Okay, in the footer, we're going to stick a button in there, and we're going to give that button a button primary. Okay, so we've got a button now for our call to action. Now, at this point, we could save this as a template and say that is our default component for a call to action. And that's where we're going to start from. Now, or we can maybe want to center that. So let's go to our card CTA. Oops. Okay, what have we got in there? We need to set up an alignment. So we haven't got a variable for that. I'm going to create one. I'm going to call that inner align. And now this is going to be a Flexbox, and the line items is for a column. Line items will align it vertically. So line item center. Got a variable for that now. Let's go down to our inner, and we can add the align items. Okay, so now we have a CTA with the elements inside that aligned to the center. So you don't need 5 different templates for your different CTAs. You just need one. You swap out your components, change your properties. Let's say we had a default on this as flex start. Okay, so it's going to put everything at the beginning. We then deploy this to our template site where we're going to save all of our templates that we reuse for components, etc. We then insert this onto a page on a new website, and we can go, okay, now we've got that on the page. For this particular website, I don't really need to go into the CSS and change properties here, because this is to give us the flexibility across all uses of this component, which you can do. If that's what your preferences, go in there and change it on there. But you can also use your UI. So now that it's on the website, go in there and align your items there. Okay, you can do that. You can change the, maybe you don't like having this big gap there, so I might change that to a content gap. So on this particular one, I just want the content gap there. So you can change it using the UI once you've created the component. And you've got full control of that. So we've gone from a card here, which would be a testimonial, team member, product, etc., to now we've created a CTA using exactly the same structure, exactly the same CSS, just with a bit of modification on it. Okay, so that's the CTA. We're done. So I've got a card CTA there. Now the next one I'm going to show you is using this in a hero. I'm going to call this hero 1. Stick that right at the top, because our heroes normally go at the top, don't they? And with that, I'm going to just duplicate that card basic again. I'm going to stick that one in the hero, and I'm going to get rid of my container that it automatically created. Okay, so there is my hero one. There's my card basic. I'm going to rename that to hero. I'm going to use my component class manager, and I'm going to grab all of my classes that have card basic there. I'm on the duplicate. I only want to include the card basic ones. We want to replace the word card basic with card hero. We want to remove the old classes from the elements, but not from the global class list. Duplicate those. Okay, we now have a card hero. Ooh, what happened there? What happened there? I messed something up there. It's going to go back to it. Okay, I messed that up. Card hero basic. We want to replace card hero basic with just card hero. Remove the old classes. And yes, this time we do want to delete them because we've duplicated those. So actually, I could have just used the rename. I should have just used the rename. In fact, I might just do that. I'm just going to rename instead. So I'm going to go, what happened there? What happened there? What happened there? Why have card hero, card basic? Okay, so go back to here, right click, my class manager. Oh, that doesn't look right. There's a bit of a bug there. Okay. So if I rename, it's got card hero. If I go duplicate, it's got card hero basic. Okay. So that's a little bug. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Okay, so when I get card hero basic, this would be the easiest way to do it. Find card hero basic, change it to card hero. We want to, is this on duplicate? It is. We want to remove the old class from the elements, and we want to delete them from the classes because we don't want the card hero basic. So duplicate. There was a small bug. I'm not sure why that happened. Okay, so there's our card hero. We haven't messed up our card basic yet. No. Okay, great. So from here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this switch here, which is the set element as root component. You can also right click on the card and click on that, and that enables it as a root component. What that does is it affects the AT-BEM converter. So if I go to this hero, and I might have other things in there. If I go hero now and I right click and run my class converter, it'll create a class for hero 1, but it doesn't create elements for this card hero, etc., because that's a root component. So it doesn't try and create elements of those. That's what that is all about, and it just makes it a lot easier to work with. Okay, so card hero, we're going to now got a class. We're going to go into here. We're going to set our spacing to 0. We're going to go to our card hero now and just go through our CSS. And what we want is our root padding. Let's make that XXL. Okay. Let's make the radius of 0. Radius of 0 on that. Actually, that's the border. So none. On a radius of 0. We want the background. Doesn't matter. We can get rid of that because we're going to use this image for our background. We're going to leave that there. The inner, we're just going to change the background on the inner to be a neutral. We'll use a transparency, say T3. Will do. Okay, that's the transparency there. Now, what we want to do is now start looking at how do we make this look more like a hero. So let's go to our root, which is the card hero, and we want the media to fill the background and have an inset of 0. So we're going to go to the root and we're going to set the position to relative. And we're going to set the isolation to isolate. The reason we do that, we put a negative Z index on our media, it's not going to disappear behind that card. All right, so that's that. We are then going to move our media out of the inner. So just drag that out of there. And then we're going to put the media under the inner in the DOM so that the screen readers and Google find the content first before they find that media wrapper. Okay, so that's that. And then on the media, we're just going to go back to our card hero, back to the CSS for that. And our media wrapper, where's our media wrapper? We don't need an aspect ratio, we don't need an order because this is going to be a background image. We're going to set the position to absolute. We're going to set the inset to 0. And we're going to set the Z index to -2. That'll do. That's stuck it in behind the content now. We'll go to the here. What do we got there? The inner. We don't have a color on there, so I'm just going to go inner. And we'll use this as just, I'll just put white in there for now. Okay, we just set default color on our inner. Okay, so just got the default color. We might actually add some more padding to our inner. This inner padding, we'll make that L. Okay, so it's got a little bit of padding, extra padding inside our inner. We might make the row gap a little bit bigger. Let's make that a space L. Bit more of a row gap there. All right. Now the other thing we might want to do here is we might want to look at the size of that inner because we want to maybe move it around the screen a little bit, okay? Actually, before we do that, let's go back to our hero. And I'm going to not style the actual class because this might be different on each hero. So let's go to the style attribute. I'm going to set my minimum height to be, say, 70. And we'll see an issue here, 70 VH. Now you can see here, my min height of 70 VH has meant my hero's gone to 70 VH, but my card has not. So now what we need to do is go to our card, CSS, and on our card, the roots, we're going to put our flex grow as 1. And our card now fills the full space. Right. So I'll now look at moving this inner around the hero, but using the flex properties, not using padding and margin and God knows what, and trying to then recalculate for other things. We're just going to use flex properties here. So to do that, I'm just going to change the, because that's a block, it's 100% wide, that inner at the moment. So we're going to go back to the inner. We can do it at the UI again, or we can do it at the CSS. I'm going to go my inner. I'm going to set my width to be auto. Now that's going to fit the space of what it calculates the biggest block to be. We don't want that. Let's say we're going to set the width to say 50 character. 50 character width, there we go. So we now got an inner with a background. It's exactly the same card as this. Exactly the same. We're just changing some of the properties of it. We're using the same elements, right? Now, if I want to move my inner around, I'll save this as a template, right? Because this might be all we need. This could be all we need. And that's fine. We save this as our template that we use on multiple sites. When this particular site, when we use it, we want to set the alignment of, maybe we want to set the alignment of this inner to the bottom right. How we do that? Our inner is here, our card is there. Go to the card. You don't need to use the CS here because this is a use of this reusable component on a single use basis. So what we can do is on that particular site, either at the ID or at that card hero level, we can start moving things around. So let's stick that at the end, and we're going to stick it on the right. So we've now moved our inner to the bottom right just by changing the flex properties of the card. Okay, so that's how I envisage doing this. We then might go to this text link here. We don't like having the icon there. We're just going to stick a button there. That button's going to have a button of white, maybe. There's our button white, done. All right. Now, that's cool, but what about this inner here? So you can, so these are divs. And the reason they're divs is because we want to be able to align them, right? So we can now go to the inner on that, and let's say we go to the header, and we align that to the right. With our right align main access to the right. Go to our header icon, so our body. Maybe we're going to align that to the right. And on our footer, we're going to align that to the right. Okay, in our body text, we're going to go to that, and we're going to set that to have a alignment of text to the right. So there we go. So just by setting our properties on that, we've given ourselves a lot of flexibility on our background. Where does this feature, I guess you'd call it, or inner sit? How big is it? How does it align? And this is a inner of a card in the same way that this is an inner of a card, in the same way that that is the inner of a card. And it's a really, if you can get your head around this, it's a really, really simple way of looking at it. It doesn't solve every problem. It doesn't work in every situation, but in a lot of situations, using the same methodology, you don't have to rethink how you do things. You just will use this way of doing it, and it works. And I think it's a great way of doing it. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope this makes sense to you, and it's something that you can use to simplify how you lay things out. And we'll leave it at that. Okay, thanks for listening.